Welcome back to Hard Smart Together. I'm Coach Dave. I'm here to help high school basketball players become the smart, confident players that coaches love. So believe it or not, there's only like 5 or 6 months until next high school basketball season. And I'm sure you are, getting into kind of planning your off-season routine, but how much thought have you given to how you're going to improve your defense in the off season? Okay, you're probably thinking, oh, I'm going to get some shots up, I'm going to get into shape, I'm going to be ready for next season, I might work on my ball handling. But you need to think of how you're going to improve your defense, because defense attracts the attention of coaches. And coming in the next season, you want to make that team, you want to become a starter, you want to become a more pivotal player in your team and win to your team's success. Defense is also something that you can rely on and can give you confidence whenever your offense might be off, or whenever your offensive game kind of fails you, right? When the shots aren't going in, when you just don't have it that night, well, you've got your defense that can control a game. And then the last thing defense does is wins games for your team. It wins championships. So that's why you should give some thought onto how you are going to improve your defense in the offseason. Now, I want to give you some ideas of how you can incorporate working on your defense while you're working on your offense as well, and while you're playing in your off-season tournaments with your AAU teams, your travel teams, whatever the case might be. Before I do, I'd like to remind you, I've got a free gift just for you listening in today. If you haven't already downloaded the 8 intangible skills that coaches love to see in players, I'll put a link in the description below, and you can go to that link and I'll get you, it's a checklist of skills that you can use both on and off the court that will really stand out to coaches and really help build your confidence on the court. Okay, so how do you work on defense in the offseason? Well, for one, we talked about you're probably doing some workouts, getting your body in shape for next season, right? You're probably lifting, you're probably running because you don't want to come in out of shape. Whatever the case might be, you're probably doing a little bit of conditioning. Well, you need to mix in some defensive conditioning as well. So, what does that mean? You need to do different exercises that maybe is going to improve your lateral quickness. Because again, having the body to move laterally is half the battle of being able to be a good defender. So the first thing I want you to do is do some stance work, right? We've talked about this in the past. Get in a stance, set the stopwatch, and hold a good, deep, wide stance for 20 or 30 seconds, right? Just that is going to start conditioning your body and conditioning the muscles that are necessary in order to play sustained great defense, okay? The other thing is you can find a line on the playground, you can put a couple of cones out on the field, whatever the case might be, but do some lateral line jumps. When I played, I think we called them ski jumps, but it's simply, having 2 feet simultaneously jumping laterally back and forth across the line, right? Do a set of 10, 15, or 20. Do a few sets of that. That builds those laterally explosive muscles that enable you to have lateral quickness, okay? The other thing you can do, you can put an exercise band around your legs, okay, just above the knees, and get down into a squat and do lateral side steps with that resistance of the band, okay? So maybe do, 10 to the left. You're just stepping out with your left foot and bringing it in almost like a very slow, controlled lateral slide, right? So 10 to the left, 10 to the right. Do a few sets of those. That as well is building the muscles that will help you become laterally quick. And then you can just do some defensive slides. If you don't want to do any of these kind of exercises and everything, do your stance work and just do some defensive slides. You know, those slides that your coach will have you do for kind of like the first couple of weeks of tryouts and season, right? Go ahead and get those going so that when you show up next season, your body's ready and your body is quicker laterally, quicker defensively than it was last season, okay? The other thing I want you to remember, when you're playing at all these AAU games, or maybe you're just playing open gyms, or whatever games you're playing in your off season, use those games as kind of a experimental sandbox for yourself, okay? So you can try out things in the off season that you can incorporate in your high school season when it really counts, okay? One of the things I want you to experiment with is ball pressure, okay? I've done a series of videos in the past, and you can refer back to them, where we talk about you've got to have the right amount of ball pressure to bother the ball handler, right? That you have to be in their consciousness without fouling them, without reaching, without fouling, but they've got to be bothered by you enough. But you also have to balance that with the ability to stay in front of them when they're trying to drive, okay? So this is a great opportunity for you to, like I said, experiment. Get a little closer, see if you're fouling, get a little closer, see if they're able to get by you. In combination with some of these, exercises that we're talking about improving your lateral quickness, you want to figure out for you specifically, how much pressure can I apply? How quick am I? How much pressure can I apply and still move laterally and still stop the drive, right? So use the off season as kind of a sandbox of, I want to bother players, I don't want to get beat, right? I want to be in their consciousness, I don't want them flying by me. I don't want to always be relying on the help to bail me out, right? And so that's another way that you can start improving your defense this offseason, okay? The other thing I want you to use as kind of an experiment, a sandbox, the offseason is a great time to get use and make a habit out of using your voice. We've talked about this a lot in the past. Using your voice on the defensive end, right? Start simply. Start with using your voice to call out screens, to call out shots going up so it reminds everyone to box out and get the rebound. Use your voice to call out that you have help. I have help left. I have your help right. Okay? Use your voice when you're on the back end of the defense to help organize the defense with the other players that are maybe primary ball defenders or the initial help side, right? Encourage with your voice, but start using your voice. And this is one that's really a hard habit to create, but it's one of the most valuable things you can do as a basketball player. So why not use your off season and you walk in next season as kind of the organizer on the defensive end? Coaches will notice that. Coaches will notice that you're helping your teammates with your voice, but you got to start making it a habit. And this is a tough one because, it's easy to kind of sit back and be quiet and just defend your man and be there for help, but not really use that tool that you have in your toolbox, which is your defensive voice, okay? And then the final thing you can do this offseason to get better on the defensive end of the court is I want you to, we've talked about this a lot, do some film study. But your film study specifically on the defensive end is studying defensive positioning, okay? You can see what other players are doing, how much pressure are they putting on the ball, right? Are they getting beat? Are they just allowing the player with the ball to look around and decide what they want to do because there's no pressure there? One pass away, is the player, stuck to their man and there's no help there? Or maybe are they getting too disconnected to their man, too focused on the help, and all of a sudden their player backdoors them, right, for a lob. What are the players on the back end of the defensive, doing? Are they using their voice? Are they in position to help a straight line drive to the basket and take a charge, right? All these things you can study on film, and it doesn't need to be your film. It doesn't need to be what you were doing defensively. You can study any game and pick out defensive positioning that's really good and defensive positioning that's really bad. And then as you learn these things from watching film, again, make the off-season your experimental sandbox. Go out there and start experimenting with how much help can I give and still remain connected to the player I'm guarding, right? Where should my positioning be if I'm on the back end of the defense or the weak side? Should I be stuck to my man? Like I'm always stuck to him? Oh no, I need to get off. I need to be a hindrance. I need to be ready to stop a drive to the basket, right? I need to be ready to help the helper. And so you can learn from film study and then apply these things on the court in your off-season games. So that's just a few things that you can do if you haven't been really focusing on or thinking about how am I going to improve my defense this off-season. This is a few ideas for you, and hopefully that helps. And until next time, remember to play hard, play smart, and play together. See you next time.